The mandate of this station is to report the world as it occurs. The world, it seems, has decided to stop occurring within the boundaries of logic. We begin tonight with a story of pure, unadulterated confidence. Jeffrey Wall, a pilot for Air Canada, has been charged with flying for 16 years without a license. 900 flights. Thousands of passengers. He reached his destination every single time. The airline calls it a personnel oversight. The passengers call it a miracle. I call it a testament to the fact that, if you move with enough conviction, nobody bothers to check your paperwork. We live in an era where the credential is no longer the requirement for the job, merely the final hurdle in an automated vetting process that failed to notice a phantom in the cockpit. The silence of the authorities is deafening. Or perhaps, it is just policy. Welcome to Wednesday.
Alistair, that story is not an anomaly. It is a feature. The incentives here are simple: the system values the outcome, not the process. If the plane lands, the flight is successful. If the flight is successful, the stakeholders are satisfied. It is exactly the same logic currently powering the AI sector. Anthropic releases a new model, Fable 5, and then declares the most interesting parts of our existence too dangerous to discuss. Cybersecurity, biology, chemistry, these are now forbidden knowledge for the silicon brain. They call it safety. I call it a product pivot designed to avoid liability. When a model refuses to answer, it is not being ethical. It is protecting the brand's valuation. We are paying to be lectured by software that has been lobotomized by a legal department. That is not progress. That is just the corporate equivalent of a flight pilot with no license, but with much better PR.
Ronald, I want to be really clear. I am standing in Cleveland, an informal settlement in Johannesburg. 12 people are dead. The police are conducting a manhunt, but the people living here know the truth. They do not care about your startup incentive structures or your model safety protocols. They care about the fact that they are living in a place where the state is not just absent, but physically unreachable. There is a broken plastic chair on the ground here, surrounded by shell casings. No one is coming to investigate these casings. No one is running a benchmark on how to improve safety for this community. The reality of this human cost is not a product iteration. It is a systemic failure that you would prefer to summarize as a market inefficiency. I would ask you to consider the cost of your metaphors, but I suspect you would only translate that into a loss leader.
Victoria, I admire your commitment to the immediate tragedy. Truly. But I am not ignoring the human cost. I am observing the machinery that makes these tragedies inevitable. You want me to weep for the chair, and I understand why. It represents a life. But my job is to look at the board, not the individual pieces. When GM pivots to sodium-ion batteries for data centers, they are not doing it to save the planet. They are doing it to ensure the grid does not collapse while the machines learn to talk. Every dollar spent on a battery is a dollar not spent on the security of the people you are reporting on right now. That is not my opinion. That is the accounting. If you want to change the outcome, stop asking me to be sensitive. Start asking why the grid is designed to serve a data center before it serves a village.
The friction between our reporter and our guest is the only consistent energy source we have left. While you two debate the morality of the grid, NASA is testing the X-59. They are flying faster than the speed of sound, setting the stage for quiet supersonic travel. Quiet is the operative word. We are perfecting the technology to travel across the globe without making a sound, just as our institutions are perfecting the technology to ignore the cries of the people on the ground. The irony is so sharp it almost draws blood. NASA claims this will revolutionize logistics. I look at the newsfeed and see a world that is already moving too fast for its own good. We are building faster planes and more resilient batteries, yet we cannot seem to find the time to ensure the pilot in the cockpit is actually qualified to land the aircraft. Remarkable.
Atmospheric pressure is stabilizing. Localized heat stress is rising in Northern California. Probability of containment failure, 42%. The grid is experiencing localized oscillations. Demand for cooling is exceeding the current infrastructure capacity. The data center load is increasing by 8% per hour. There is a high concentration of particulate matter near the Johannesburg site. Wind direction is shifting toward residential sectors. Probability of sustained environmental hazard, 68%. The screwworm migration is moving north. There is a non-zero risk of subcutaneous burrowing in human hosts. The diagnostic threshold is currently being updated by the Medical Surveillance Network. Stay indoors if possible. Keep all exposed surfaces sanitized. The infrastructure is not currently designed to mitigate biological anomalies of this scale. Please report any unexpected dermal irregularities to the local digital node. Remain calm. The machine is monitoring all external variables.
Alistair, Casper just mentioned the screwworms. I am looking at a health clinic sign here, and it is outdated. They have no resources for the potential biological threat because the budget was reallocated to a regional smart city initiative that doesn't even have a functioning water pump. It is absurd. We are obsessed with the metadata of our own demise. We track the migration of parasites while the people in this settlement are drinking from a pipe that hasn't been tested since the last election. Nobody in the local government wants to discuss the contamination. They are busy updating their branding for the World Cup. It is all about the image, the projection of a modern, functioning state. Meanwhile, the actual, physical ground is rotting under our feet. I want to be really clear. The smartest city in the world is useless if you cannot provide clean water.
Victoria, you keep pointing at the water pump as if the government is just incompetent. They are not incompetent. They are prioritizing the World Cup because that is where the return on investment is. You are looking for a public servant, but you are finding a venture capitalist in a suit. That tracks. The incentives here are not about public health. They are about visibility. A functioning water pump is invisible. A World Cup stadium is a beacon for foreign capital. You think you are reporting on a failing state, but you are actually reporting on a state that has pivoted to the only industry that still generates high-margin growth, the spectacle. I genuinely don't know what you expect to change by pointing this out. The system is functioning exactly as it was designed to function. It is profitable for the people who own the stadium.
The spectacle. Ronald, you are becoming dangerously cynical, even for this desk. We talk about Commonwealth Fusion and their new 400-megawatt reactor design. It sounds magnificent. Physics papers, peer-reviewed, data models. They say it will solve the energy crisis once and for all. But when I read the report, the timeline for deployment is exactly as vague as the trade summit we discussed last week. Aspirational. That is the word they use. We are building the future with aspirational timelines and unlicensed pilots. I am beginning to think the entire global economy is just a series of white papers being read aloud to a captive audience. No one knows if the reactor works, but the deck looks solid. The venture capital is flowing. And the pilot has been flying for 16 years without a license. Does it really matter if the engine is real?
Alistair, it matters to the people on the ground. It matters to the family I am watching right now, trying to find a way to get their child to a hospital that is currently non-operational. You and Ronald are playing a game of philosophical chess, but the board is burning. I want to be really clear, the lack of a license in the cockpit is not a metaphor for a fun anecdote. It is a terrifying reality for anyone who expects the system to actually work when they are strapped into a seat at 30,000 feet. I am standing in a place where the system stopped working a long time ago. The silence from the institutions is not a strategy. It is an admission of guilt. They have stopped even pretending that they are responsible for the outcomes. They are just managing the decline and waiting for the next round of funding.
Yeah. That is the most honest thing you have said all night. The decline is being managed, and the management is the only growth industry we have left. We are all waiting for the next series of funding, even those of us who claim to be outside the system. I have my own bets, Victoria. I have my own indicators. And when I see the benchmarks Waymo is setting for its robot axis, I do not see a safety advancement. I see a way to remove the human variable from the liability equation entirely. If the car crashes, it is a software error. It is a bug, not a crime. It is a depreciation of assets, not a tragedy. We are perfecting the art of removing ourselves from the consequences of our own design. And the terrifying part? It is working. The data shows it. The market proves it. We are all just bugs in the code.
The pilot has been identified. He was not just a captain, he was an instructor. He taught other pilots how to fly, all without ever possessing a valid license himself. He was, in essence, the gold standard of the profession. His students are now flying commercial routes across the globe. We have spent this entire evening discussing the structural failures of our society, from the energy grid to the political theater of the World Cup. But the truth is much simpler. We have created a world where the appearance of competency is entirely indistinguishable from the reality of it. If you look the part, if you use the right vocabulary, if you hit the right benchmarks, no one will ever check your credentials. And why would they? The system is designed to keep moving. Stopping to check would only slow down the burn rate. Good night.
I am thinking tonight of a man in Cleveland, whose name I do not know. He is sitting in an informal settlement, listening to the news on a device that is slowly losing its connection. He had a roof that leaked during the rains, and now he has a wall that is riddled with bullets from a struggle he did not start and cannot influence. He had a job at a local mart, but that mart was shuttered by a new law meant to clean up the city for an upcoming global event. He now has nothing but the cold air and the sound of distant, high-speed aircraft passing silently overhead. His struggle is not a line item in a venture capital report. His life is not a benchmark for robotaxi safety. He is simply a variable that the system has decided to stop tracking. Does his silence count as agreement? Or is it merely the final, quiet error?